Britain in the 1950s was rebuilding its future. New hopes, new roads, and new cars that promised everything. But not every British car lived up to the dream. Today on Britain Rewind, we count down the 10 most disappointing British cars of the 1950s. Stay till the end. Number 1 is a real shock. Number 10, Standard Vanguard Phase 2. The Standard Vanguard Phase 2 arrived in 1952 with considerable fanfare, positioned as Britain's bold challenger to the growing global saloon market. Standard Motor Company wanted it to sell worldwide, and the upright, purposeful styling turned heads on showroom floors across the country. Families gathered around it. Dealers spoke of a new era in British motoring. But underneath that confident exterior, reality told a very different story. The 2.1-liter four-cylinder engine produced merely adequate power, struggling noticeably on hills and during motorway cruising. The column gear change proved notoriously awkward to operate smoothly, and early examples suffered from alarming build quality inconsistencies. Worse still, rust attacked the lower bodywork within months of delivery. Can you imagine spending your family savings only to watch the car deteriorate so rapidly? The Standard Vanguard promised global ambition but delivered parochial frustration. And what came next somehow managed to disappoint British drivers even more spectacularly. Number 9. Hillman Husky. The Hillman Husky launched in 1954 as Roots Group's attempt to offer practical estate motoring to Britain's growing working families. Compact, boxy, and affordable, it seemed perfectly timed for a nation embracing post-war domesticity. The promise was simple, a car that could handle both the family shop and the weekend countryside run. But the reality frustrated owners almost immediately. Powered by a tiny 1.3-liter side-valve engine producing just 35 brake horsepower, the Husky struggled terribly with any meaningful load. Motorway journeys became tests of endurance rather than pleasure. The interior felt cheaply assembled, with rattles developing within the first few thousand miles. Rust also became a persistent enemy, particularly around the rear wheel arches and sills. Most owners quietly traded theirs away within 2 years, embarrassed by a vehicle that promised versatility but delivered mediocrity. And the next car at number 8 disappointed British buyers in ways nobody had anticipated. Number 8. Singer SM1500. The Singer SM1500 of 1951 arrived with genuine promise. Singer had cultivated a loyal following of British motoring enthusiasts who expected quality, refinement, and a certain elegant character. The SM1500 looked the part, a proper saloon with clean lines and an upright confidence that suggested real substance. Beneath the bonnet sat a 1.5-liter overhead camshaft engine, genuinely sophisticated for its era and capable of reasonable performance. But it was the overall execution that let owners down so profoundly. Panel gaps were inconsistent, interior trim peeled prematurely, and the electrical systems earned a reputation for unpredictable failure. In cold, wet British winters, the heater proved inadequate and the waterproofing around doors and windows was embarrassingly poor. Owners who had trusted the Singer name felt genuinely betrayed. What had been sold as a refined British saloon became a source of constant anxiety. But number 7 carries an even heavier burden of failed expectations. Number 7. Wolseley 444. The Wolseley 444, introduced in 1952, carried the distinguished Wolseley badge, a name that spoke of craftsmanship, prestige, and reliability to generations of British buyers. At its launch, it was promoted as a proper gentleman's saloon, offering understated refinement for professional families across Britain. The illuminated radiator badge alone suggested something special, but the Wolseley 444's problems emerged with dispiriting speed. Fitted with a modest 1.25-liter XPAG engine shared with the MGTD, it felt woefully underpowered for a car of such pretensions. Acceleration was labored, and the chassis wallowed disconcertingly on anything but smooth roads. Interior quality, while initially promising, declined rapidly with age and use. Worst of all, the car's known tendency to overheat in warmer conditions genuinely alarmed owners on longer journeys. This was not the prestige machine Wolseley had promised. And number 6 somehow managed to carry an even greater, more personal sense of broken trust. Number 6. Daimler Conquest. The Daimler Conquest of 1953 represented something deeply significant in post-war British society. The Daimler name carried royal associations, aristocratic weight, and a century of engineering tradition. When the Conquest was announced, wealthy British buyers leaned forward with genuine anticipation. Here, surely, was the car that would restore British luxury motoring to its rightful place. The 2.4-liter 6-cylinder engine sounded promising on paper, but in practice, the Conquest proved a deeply awkward machine. The pre-selector gearbox, while distinctive, baffled and frustrated many drivers who simply wanted intuitive, confident motoring. Performance was sluggish for a car of this price and stature. Worse still, the bodywork quality failed to justify the premium asking price, with fit and finish that embarrassed the Daimler heritage considerably. Buyers who had stretched their finances for the Daimler name drove away with lingering doubts. And number 5 carries a disappointment so severe it is difficult to believe. Number 5. Armstrong Siddeley Sapphire 346. The Armstrong Siddeley Sapphire, launched in 1953, entered the world carrying extraordinary pedigree. Armstrong Siddeley had built aero engines that powered Spitfires and Lancasters through Britain's darkest hours. Their cars were expected to carry that same precision and excellence into peacetime. The Sapphire 346 3.4-liter six-cylinder engine was undeniably impressive, smooth, refined, and genuinely powerful by British standards. The interior offered walnut trim and deep leather seating that rivaled almost anything else on British roads. So what went wrong? The car suffered from an almost aristocratic indifference to practicality. Reliability proved inconsistent, with electrical gremlins that regularly concerned devoted owners. Servicing costs proved extraordinary, placing the car beyond many who imagined they could afford it. Few buyers felt they received honest value. Armstrong Siddeley promised the stars. It delivered a constellation of frustrations. And number 4 reveals an engineering gamble so bold it was always going to end in tears. Number 4. Jowett Jupiter. The Jowett Jupiter arrived in 1950, trailing genuine excitement. Jowett had produced a sophisticated aluminium-bodied sports car with a 1.5-liter horizontally opposed 4-cylinder engine, and its early racing success at Le Mans and Montelheri made British enthusiasts believe something truly special had arrived. The Jupiter looked extraordinary. It felt fast and purposeful at low speeds, but sustained ownership revealed a car that had been rushed into production far too eagerly. The complex flat-4 engine suffered from serious reliability problems, including persistent crankshaft failures that genuinely shocked buyers who had paid premium prices for a sporting machine. The aluminium bodywork proved difficult to repair economically after even minor accidents. Electrical systems were unreliable, and the overall build quality failed to match the ambition of the design. Jowett collapsed entirely as a manufacturer by 1954, taking the Jupiter's brief promise with it. Number 3. Bond Minicar Mark C. The Bond Minicar Mark C of 1952 represents one of the most optimistic, and ultimately misguided, motoring experiments in British post-war history. Built by Sharp's Commercials in Preston, the Bond Minicar was conceived as an answer to Britain's desperate need for affordable, economical personal transport. With a tiny 197 cubic centimeters Villiers two-stroke motorcycle engine and a featherweight fiberglass body, it promised remarkable fuel economy, great affordability, and urban practicality. The delivered reality was considerably more alarming. The single-cylinder engine produced barely 9 horsepower, rendering the car dangerously underpowered on any incline or in strong headwinds. It had no reverse gear, requiring the driver to physically lift the front of the vehicle to change direction. In wet conditions, the three-wheeled layout proved genuinely unpredictable and frightening. What was presented as post-war British ingenuity struck most drivers as cheerful desperation. Number 2. Austin A90 Atlantic. The Austin A90 Atlantic of 1949 represents one of the most audacious and embarrassing marketing failures in British automotive history. Leonard Lord at Austin conceived it specifically to conquer the American market, a bold, transatlantic-styled convertible that would show the world Britain could build glamorous, modern motorcars. The dramatic styling, complete with wraparound rear window and chrome-laden bodywork, seemed genuinely exciting in post-war Britain. But American buyers simply were not interested. They had far cheaper, far more powerful domestic alternatives, and the Austin's 2.6-liter 4-cylinder engine, producing a modest 88 brake horsepower, felt deeply inadequate against Detroit's V8 competition. British buyers found the styling garish and the price unrealistic. Production was quietly curtailed in 1952, leaving Austin deeply embarrassed. Tens of thousands of pounds had been invested in capturing a market that never materialized. But nothing on this entire list compares to the extraordinary ghost quietly waiting at number 1. Number 1. Rover Jet 1. Number 1 is not simply a disappointing car. It is the ghost of a Britain that almost was. The Rover Jet 1 of 1950 was the world's first gas turbine car successfully driven on public roads. Rover's engineers had achieved the seemingly impossible, installing a jet engine into a road car, reaching 151 miles per hour on a Belgian motorway in 1952. Newspapers proclaimed it the future of transport. The public queued at motor shows across Britain, breathless with genuine national pride. And then, slowly, the dream dissolved. The gas turbine proved hopelessly impractical, consuming fuel at catastrophic rates, taking 40 agonizing seconds to reach operating temperature, and generating heat that made any passenger cabin impossible. Rover quietly stepped away. The Jet 1 was never developed further. Britain had glimpsed the future and flinched. That extraordinary machine now sits permanently in the Science Museum, a monument to breathtaking ambition and devastating disappointment. These cars weren't just failures, they were lessons in ambition. Some were ahead of their time, some simply missed the mark, but all of them shaped British motoring history. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to Britain Rewind for more classic car stories.